Go ahead and turn your Bibles this morning to the book of Ezra. We're going to start there, and then we're going to go over to the book of Zechariah. So start off in the book of Ezra, and then we'll find our way over to the book of Zechariah. Ezra, just a couple passages here just to kind of refresh where we're at. You know, while you're finding your place there, I just wanted to, excuse me, I don't really have a cough. It's more of I just choke a little bit. My breathing is still a little weird, and just to kind of catch everyone up on me, I had about 3 rough days there. December started Christmas Day was on Friday this year, or last year. I'm sorry. Man, I'm all over the place right now. But December the 25th was my first really rough day. I woke up on Christmas morning and it was like a really bad flu, really bad. Chills, headache, just migraine level headache, breathing trouble, just weird, and then some weird things going with the flu symptoms. I'm not trying, but I had some diarrhea, but I know that's not pleasant to think about. But I thought it was weird to couple that with flu, and then lost my sense of smell and sense of taste, and went through that for about 3 days. So Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, each day getting a little lighter. And then by Monday, I felt pretty good. I was already feeling pretty good again. Still a little under the weather, breathing trouble a little bit. But see, I have asthma, so I'm kind of used to having weird breathing. So it's hard for me to know what's COVID related and what's just me naturally. But I can tell my breathing isn't 100%. And anyway, that's just kind of where I'm at. Had a cough for a while, but I really haven't been coughing now. I just kind of get a little choked up. But that's where I'm at. My taste and smell stayed away for a few days more, and then finally it started coming back, and I could actually taste something. You know, Johnny was cooking something, and I couldn't smell it. And I said, honey, I can't even smell that. That is so strange. I should be able to smell that. And that was when I first realized it. And then I tried tasting it, couldn't taste it either. I was telling Brother Sonny and I think Brother Mark, I poured some salt in my hand and licked it and couldn't taste it. You could feel the texture of it, but I couldn't even taste the salt. And so it was very odd. And then, man, my taste started coming back, and that was a good day. That was a really good day. I smelled of an orange. Oh, that is great. So, and then Johnny, she lost her taste buds, and she was so worried. She lost them for like 5 days. She's like, it's been a week and a half. I was like, it's only been like 5 days, honey. And she thought they weren't coming back. And then we had some pizza, and she said, oh, this is the best pizza ever. It was the first night that she got her taste buds back. So anyways, she's going to shoot me for commenting on it. But she's doing pretty good. She probably would have been fine today, but we're taking advice to quarantine the kids a little longer and watch them a little longer. Everybody's got different advice. According to the state of Oklahoma, I was fine Wednesday, and according to the Choctaw Nation, I was fine yesterday. So everybody has different things that they're following on all that. Also, kind of trying to learn from this. We're trying to work on our house again, trying to get moved in over there, trying to get it, want to get it finished this time before we move in. And hopefully we won't have to do this again, get a visiting preacher to cover it for a couple of weeks or something like that. Hopefully we won't have to shut the doors again. We're trying to avoid that is all I'm trying to say. We're trying to learn from it and get better from it. I also want to say this, and it's not to browbeat or anything like that. Kind of goes along with what Brother Mark was saying in his Sunday school. One thing we can take away from this is I hope that we don't take church for granted. I hope that we have a love for church. and a love for God. And, you know, I hope we can take away from this, wow, you know what, I love church. I don't want to have to do without it. I don't want there to come a day. You know, I have wondered if what the Lord is doing through all of this is showing us who's for real and who's not. And it's not for us to sit back and go and judge that. That's not what I'm talking about. But for us to check ourselves and go, you know what, is this real to me? Do I really love church? Do I really love God? And that would be questions to kind of take on here. Also, we got a new Baptist Times in. I handed it out to everyone that's come, and I wanted to tell you, Brother Dave Hardy's got a really good article in here. Let me see if I can find the title of it. Let's see. I saw it earlier. Living or Just Existing. Page 22 by Brother Dave Hardy. I encourage you to read that. He got COVID-19, and he talks about he's still having some breathing trouble to this day, but he's out preaching again and out traveling again. But you know, it's a good question. It's a really good question to ask ourselves. Are we really living? Are we just existing? And you know, something that COVID can do, it can give us a spirit of fear. And we don't need to get into a spirit of fear. We need to be cautious, careful, and you know, thoughtful of others. But as far as living in fear, that does not need to have a place in the Christian's life. We've got to temper that, right? We've got to be careful. There's a fine balance there. And so let's be careful of that spirit of fear. In the book of Ezra this morning, chapter number 5, let's read one verse right before chapter number 5, the last verse of chapter number 4, verse number 24. Then ceased the work of the house of God, which is at Jerusalem, so it ceased unto the 2nd year of the reign of Darius, king of Persia. The background, what's gone on here is, of course, we've been surveying the Bible. God sent prophet after prophet warning the people that if they didn't get their lives right with Him, they were going to go into captivity. And this is a biblical thought, okay? This is a biblical principle. Listen, you're saved by grace, okay? It's a person realizing, wow, I'm a sinner. I need to be forgiven of my sins. It's a person coming under conviction. And that conviction going, you know what? Wow, I'm a sinner and I need to get right with the Lord. And calling on the Lord, asking Jesus to forgive them of their sins. It's pretty, okay, that's salvation in a nutshell. It's a lot of times it's a little more complicated than that. People struggle with it. You know, they wrestle with it in their mind and all those things. But really, that's it in a nutshell. That's a person realize, wow, I'm a sinner. I'm bound for hell, and I need to be forgiven of my sins. Good grief, I need to get right with God Almighty through Jesus Christ, His Son. It's that simple. Okay. Now, as far as having blessings on your life, a lot of people think after that, well, okay, I can put it on cruise control and everything. You're not going to lose your salvation. But you can lose some blessings. You really can. If you don't think so, look at Lot in the book of Genesis. Talk about it. A saved man. The Bible says he's a righteous man, a just man. Lost some serious blessings. All because he basically said, all right, I'm saved. I'll just do whatever now. I'll put it on cruise control. That's such a danger. And Brother Mark was talking about that in Sunday school. That's the danger. You start going through the motions. You stop taking the Lord seriously. You stop taking church seriously, whatever. You stop taking your Bible seriously. And, that's such a danger. Just put it on cruise control and become a lukewarm Christian, basically. And I do believe we're in the lukewarm church age. I really do. I think we're in the Laodicean church age. And I hope we're not. You know, it's not one of those things where I hope we're in that church age. But it just seems like we are, doesn't it? It just seems like he was saying today. So many people call themselves Christians across America because their grandparents were a Christian, because they were raised Catholic or whatever. You know, whatever their reason is. Yeah, I believe Jesus existed, and they say that that's belief in Jesus. No, it's not. They haven't placed their faith in Him. They haven't placed their faith and trust in what He did on the cross to save them from their sins. And so many people throw the word Christian around, and I think we're living in that day. And I'm getting carried away. What I'm trying to say is God sent prophet after prophet, preacher after preacher to the people of Israel, warning them, look, you got to start obeying me or you're going to go into captivity. Look, you're already my people. Okay? You're my chosen people. Christians are His people. You've been bought with a price. You've been covered in Jesus' shed blood. But then He said, look, if you don't obey me though, there's going to be some consequences. And preachers are sent to warn you and to confront you about that and to get in your face a little bit about that and to challenge you about that. And He sent prophet after prophet. Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk, Isaiah, Jeremiah. He sent these preachers after preacher. And the people did not listen. Jeremiah even said that in chapter 6. He said, but they would not hearken. They would not hear it. And so the people went into bondage. They went into captivity. They were conquered. Jerusalem was conquered 3 times. And 3 times people were taken into captivity. And I think the first captivity included Daniel, the prophet Daniel. And I think the second included Ezekiel. And then there was a third conquering. The third one, after the third one, Jeremiah wrote Lamentations. And that was such, he talked about the brutality of that third one. That third one was without mercy. The Babylonians were tired of Jerusalem being a thorn in their side. And that third one, they really socked it to them. That third conquering of Jerusalem, they really socked it to them. They spent 70 years in captivity after that. Daniel even talked about that in I think when he was around the age of 85. And he looked at the fact that they had about 5 or 6 more years, I can't remember, of captivity, and he was studying the book of Jeremiah, and he was going, wow, okay, so we've almost gone through 70 years of captivity. Jeremiah predicted that they would do that. Ezra, that brings us to where we're at. At the end of that 70 years, a guy named Zerubbabel and his, you might say, sidekick or spiritual leader, Joshua, or Jeshua, however you want to pronounce it, it's the same word. Zerubbabel was basically a political leader, a godly political leader. Can we say that in the same phrase? That doesn't seem like that goes together, does it? That's difficult to say, especially in our day. A godly political leader. Whoa! That's so politically incorrect to say in our day. But they had a godly political leader. That's amazing. And his name was Zerubbabel. And he had a spiritual leader, a high priest named Joshua, and they led the first return. And that's in chapters number 1 through 4 of Ezra. Okay? They start rebuilding the temple. And when they start rebuilding the temple, people didn't like it. The enemies of God didn't like that. And so they started resisting it, culminating with verse number 23 of chapter 4. Look at this. Now when the copy of the king Artaxerxes' letter was read before Rehum and Shimshai the scribe and their companions, and those are the enemies of God, they went up in haste to Jerusalem unto the Jews and made them to cease by force and power. So they forced them to stop. So basically a king named Artaxerxes put a stop to it, and the work of rebuilding the temple stopped for 15 years. Okay? They had laid the foundations. Zerubbabel and Joshua had laid the foundations, but the work of the Lord stopped for 15 years. Verse 1 of chapter 5. Then the prophets, Haggai the prophet and Zechariah the son of Iddo, prophesied unto the Jews that were in Judah and Jerusalem, and in the name of the God of Israel, even unto them. Listen, when the work of the Lord stops, God raises up a man. When God needs something done, He tends to send a preacher. It doesn't make a lot of sense to us, but He tends to raise up a man, fill him with His Holy Spirit, and send him to the people and confront them. And say, hey, look, something's not right here. You need to get saved, or you've backslidden away from the Lord. Whatever it is, the message is usually the same. Okay, in this case, the people were backslidden. They were fearful. They were scared. And Haggai and Zechariah are going, no, get back to work. Let's rebuild that temple. You started it, now finish it. And so the prophets rose up and cheered them on, got them back in line with God. Look at verse 2. Then rose up Zerubbabel the son of Shealtiel and Jeshua the son of Jozadak, and began to build the house of God, which is at Jerusalem. And with them were the prophets of God helping them. And so we looked at Haggai the last, I guess 2 weeks ago before I got COVID. I guess it would have been Sunday, December the 20th. We looked at Haggai that night. And let's just turn to Haggai real quick. I know I hope you marked your place in Zechariah, but turn over to Haggai. It's right before Zechariah. It's a little 2-chapter book, Haggai is. And Haggai is made up, some say 4 sermons, some say 3. Really, it's 3 different occasions where he preaches. Haggai does, because he dates it when he preached it. I mentioned that last time. In Haggai chapter 1, verse 1, he talks about the 6th month. And so he's preaching here in the 6th month of the Hebrew calendar. And he basically challenges them to rebuild the Lord's house, get back to building the temple. Okay, so it's interesting. You can take Ezra chapter 5, verse 1, where it says Haggai began to start, and you can read exactly what his sermon was. I love that. You know, a lot of times we just read a summary like that. We don't even know what the prophets said. Here we do. We know exactly what he said. And here, in chapter 1, he stirs up the people to rebuild the temple. In chapter number 2, he tells them not to get discouraged at the temple. I tell you, here we are this morning, and I'm looking at 5 people. Sorry, that's discouraging. My dad's over there. He's not very pretty. He's ugly. He's got an ugly mug. No, it's discouraged. Listen, I can find plenty of reasons in life to be discouraged. Okay? Church struggles and family struggles and all kinds of things. But I don't think the Lord would have us be discouraged. I think He would go, no. Look at what you're doing right now. Look at the temple right now. And so the people, listen, they weren't building Solomon's glorious temple at this time. And some of them were getting depressed about that. Some of them were excited about what the Lord was doing in their life right now. And some of them were excited about that. But the older ones who had seen the temple before were discouraged. And they were going, well, this isn't as glorious as Solomon's temple. This isn't as big or as magnificent as Solomon's temple. Well, 3,000 didn't get saved today. It's not been a good day for the Lord. And if you're not careful, you can get into that spirit. And we've got to be very cautious of that. And that's what Haggai goes into in chapter 2. He says, no, you have no idea. One day, Jesus is coming back. He skips to the millennial reign of Christ in chapter 2. It says, no, one day He's going to have a temple. It's going to blow your mind. He's going to build a temple during the 1,000-year reign of Christ. We haven't even seen it yet. And Haggai says, and it'll blow your mind. No, don't focus on your troubles and woes of right now. Understand, there's coming a future temple that's going to put Solomon's to shame. Wow, what a message. Haggai has a very good message to the people. And that's in chapter 2, verses 1 through 9. And that was in if I remember correctly, the 7th month. So that was the next month that he preached that. And then in the 8th month, Zechariah preached verses 1 through 6 of chapter 1. So their ministry is intertwining here. And then in the 9th month, Haggai preached verses 10 through 19, and then also verses 20 through 23, and it's 2 different messages. In verses 10 through 19, he was encouraging the people to clean up their lives. Here they are rebuilding the temple of God, and he's saying, look, your temples. Brother Mark was talking about that in Sunday school this morning. Your temples are not clean. You're not living clean lives. Here you are building that's great, and do that, but you need to be working on this in private too. You need to be letting the Lord have His way with you in your private lives as well. And isn't that amazing how that fits with exactly what the New Testament is saying to Christians? Here you are saved. Here you are forgiven of your sins, Corinthian church. But do you not know that that your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit? And so Paul was encouraging them, look, have some solid private lives. Have some Christian, godly private lives too. And so Haggai is doing the same thing. in his day. And in verses 20 through 23, he has a special message for Zerubbabel himself. And I was telling you this last Sunday. I believe he was promising Zerubbabel here that he would actually perhaps be the prime minister during the millennial reign of Christ. So he skips ahead again to the 1,000-year reign of Jesus. And then we go to Zechariah. And here we are. I've tried to catch you up, and we are in Zechariah. The title of the message this morning is Ready or Not, Here He Comes. That's off the sign out there. And Brother Mark was talking about that in Sunday school. Man, doesn't it seem like he's right around the corner? All these signs, everything just turning toward Jesus coming back. I think we're going to go through some more stuff first. But I could be wrong. He could be back tonight. Who knows? That's just my feeling on it. He doesn't tell us the very day. He doesn't tell us the very year that he's coming back. He said we'd know the season. He said you'd start to see the signs. There'd be wars and rumors of wars. There'd be political unrest. We don't have anything like that. There'd be all kinds of economic unrest. I really do think the economy is going to get worse first, but it's already in shambles. We already have fake money. We have no gold backing it up. We have monopoly money. It's almost, really, if we stopped and really looked at what our money is worth, it is worth nothing. It's worth close to nothing. But anyways, I digress from all that. But ready or not, here he comes. The book of Zechariah, when you compare it to Haggai, because they preached at the same time, Haggai's main focus was on the temple. That was the main focus. Okay, it was, hey, get busy rebuilding the temple. It was, hey, think about the temple that's coming during the millennium. It was, hey, think about your temple. And that was really more of the theme of Haggai. And Zechariah, though, it's a little more, it seems like his goal is a little more of encouragement of think of the Messiah. Think about the Messiah of the temple. Zechariah, it's been said, was written to encourage the people to continue with the rebuilding of the temple by keeping their focus on Jesus, keeping their focus on the Messiah. He uses 10 visions in chapters 1 through 6. There's a total of 10 visions. And in chapters 7 and 8, there's a total of 4 messages or sermons. And then in chapters 9 through 14, there's 2 burdens that he gives to show that God remembers his covenant and will send his Messiah. Rather than rebuking them for not completing the temple, as Haggai had done, Zechariah encourages them by reminding them of the future importance and blessings of the temple. All right. The author is Zechariah. His name means Jehovah remembers. He was of priestly descent, which puts him in the same class with Jeremiah and Ezekiel. They were both in a priestly class. He was, I didn't know this, he was also part of the great synagogue that, along with Ezra and Malachi, established the Old Testament Canaan. And so they established what was going into the Old Testament. According to Jesus, in Matthew 23:35, Zechariah was martyred in the temple. He was killed in the temple. In the same way that an earlier guy named Zechariah was slain in 2 Chronicles 24:20-21. The date that this is written is between the years 520 and 518 BC. Same time as Haggai. I mean, it's amazing. We have an amazing account of when this was written. I mean, these guys actually put down what month of what year they're writing in. So, it's a little different from other prophets. The recipients of this book was the returning remnant of the first return under Zerubbabel. That's why I included, there was 3 captivities, there's 3 returns. There's one under Zerubbabel, and that's who's getting preached to here. The second one is led by Ezra, and those are the last 6 chapters of Ezra. And then the third one is led by Nehemiah. And so those are the 3 returns. This one is written to that first remnant that's returning. After the return from the 70-year captivity, Israel began to rebuild the temple, but then delayed 15 years without completing the work. God then called Haggai and the younger Zechariah to stir the people back to the work and back to God. Haggai and Zechariah were the dynamic duo of the Old Testament, it's been said, calling the people of God back to the work of the temple of God. Haggai was the practical prophet, and Zechariah the visionary prophet. That's a pretty interesting way to look at it. I was thinking about this. A lot of times God uses duos. He uses duos. I was thinking about David and Jonathan. I was thinking about Joshua and Caleb. You think about the duo there, and Isaiah and Micah, where Isaiah was called really more of the court of Judah. Micah was called more of the common people. And then you have Daniel and Ezekiel. And Daniel was called to the court of Babylon. Ezekiel is preaching more to the common people. It's interesting how God does that. But Zechariah and Haggai are in that same mold. And then think of Zerubbabel and Joshua. You've got Zerubbabel, the political leader, and Joshua, the priestly leader. And so that's interesting how God tends to work that way. Zechariah and Daniel are the two Old Testament parallels to the book of Revelation. It's been said that Daniel and Revelation fit like a hand in a glove. You could really say a lot of the same things about Zechariah. Zechariah has a lot to say about the end times and really parallels well with the book of Revelation. Zechariah, let's see, these books coupled with Ezekiel are called the apocalyptic books, or the books of visions or revelations of the Bible. Let me see here. I've got a few more notes I want to throw out here. Zechariah, I didn't know, this was interesting to me. Zechariah has more messianic prophecies than any other minor prophet. Now let me say that again. Zechariah has more messianic, that's of the Messiah, prophecies than any other minor prophet. So of the minor prophet books, Hosea, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk, Zephaniah, Haggai, Zechariah, Malachi, of those, Zechariah is the messianic book. The only books of the Old Testament that have more is Psalms and Isaiah. Those are the only two books of the whole Old Testament that have more messianic references, like specific references, than Zechariah does. That's why I said, it's like Zechariah is trying to get them to think about the future Messiah that's coming. Let's rebuild that temple. Let's get ready for his return. Think about that future Messiah. He's coming back. He's coming. For us, we say he's coming back. Ready or not, here he comes. And Zechariah is pretty well saying the same thing to these people. Look, he's coming. Let's get busy. Let's get busy serving the Lord. Let's get busy building the temple now. Let's get busy building in our day. Let's get busy building the church. Let's get busy working on ourselves, working on our own spiritual growth. But let's also work on others and try to get them into the church. And let's get busy building the temple. Zechariah presents Jesus as the branch in Zechariah 3:8, as God's servant, also in Zechariah 3:8. God's smitten shepherd, Zechariah 13:7. Zechariah talks about the triumphal entry, and we'll look at that in just a second. Zechariah predicts the betrayal of Jesus. We'll look at that in just a second. The piercing of Jesus' hands and feet, and his return to the Mount of Olives. Zechariah is the least well-known of the Bible's major prophetic books concerning the end times. And let's look at some of these messianic references. Turn to Zechariah chapter 9, verse 9. Zechariah chapter 9, verse 9. Rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. Shout, O daughter of Jerusalem. Behold, thy king. And notice it's capitalized right there. It's capitalized because it's talking about the Messiah. Thy king cometh unto thee. Now, think about this. Was he talking about an earthly king? No. That throne has been done away with. The Babylonians crushed that throne. He's predicting the Messiah here. Thy king cometh unto thee. He is just and having salvation, lowly and riding upon an ass, and upon a colt, the foal of an ass. Now, isn't that interesting? How he predicted that Jesus would ride that donkey. Verse number 10, and I will cut off the chariot from Ephraim, well, hold on, I didn't need to read on, but it predicted how Jesus would present himself to Israel there. In chapter 11 and verse number 12, look at this. And I said unto them, if ye think good, give me my price, and if not, forbear. So they weighed for my price 30 pieces of silver. How much was Jesus sold for? 30 pieces of silver. Verse 13, and the Lord said unto me, cast it unto the potter. Didn't they buy the potter's field with it? Isn't that interesting? A goodly price that I was prized at of them, and I took the 30 pieces of silver and cast them to the potter in the house of the Lord. Isn't that what even Judas wound up doing? He wound up throwing it down as he was facing the Jewish leaders. You can't tell me the Jewish leaders went and bought that potter's field with that money trying to fulfill this prophecy. They wound up, the very enemies of Christ wound up fulfilling this prophecy. Think about that. Also, chapter number 13 and verse number 6. We have the Messiah crucified. Chapter number 13, verse number 6. And one shall say unto him, what are these wounds in thine hands? Then he shall answer, those with which I was wounded in the house of my friends. Verse number 7. Awake, O sword, against my shepherd. This is God speaking here. Against my shepherd and against the man that is my fellow, saith the Lord of hosts. Smite the shepherd, and the sheep shall be scattered, and I will turn mine hand upon the little ones. So we have the prediction here that the shepherd would be smitten and killed here. So we have the prediction of the Messiah being crucified. Zechariah chapter number 3 and verse number 1. This is, I had thought about maybe even just focusing on this passage because this is one of my favorite passages in the whole Bible. But I mean, especially in the book of Zechariah. But chapter 3, verse number 1. Zechariah says, And he showed me Joshua the high priest, standing before the angel of the Lord, and Satan standing at his right hand to resist him. This is amazing. Zechariah gets this vision of Joshua the high priest standing before the angel of the Lord, and Satan himself standing at the right hand to resist him. That's amazing. Can you imagine getting that vision? The Bible doesn't say a lot about the devil, and we shouldn't focus on the devil, very much. But I just find it very interesting that all of a sudden he just pops up. Zechariah just has this vision of Satan, and here's what he's doing. Verse number 2. And the Lord said unto Satan, the Lord rebuke thee, O Satan, even the Lord that hath chosen Jerusalem rebuke thee. Is not this a brand plucked out of the fire? Talking about Joshua. Every saved person, every person that has put their faith and trust in Jesus Christ is a brand plucked out of the fire. Literally. The fires of hell. And it's like they've been snatched from the jaws of hell. Anyone that's saved, I don't think we stop and think about that. A person that's saved has been snatched, literally, from the flames that they were headed to. That's just amazing. And the Lord is rebuking Satan right here. They're not getting along. There's no, Satan is doing the Lord's bidding or anything. No. The Lord is rebuking him. It says in verse 3, Now Joshua was clothed with filthy garments and stood before the angel. And he answered and spake unto those that stood before him, saying, Take away the filthy garments from him. And unto him he said, Behold, I have caused thine iniquity to pass from thee, and I will clothe thee with a change of raiment. What a beautiful picture of salvation right there. Amen. That's amazing. We're not reading this in the New Testament. This isn't Paul writing this, that this is how salvation is done. This is in the Old Testament. That you take out, basically, your dirty rags of trying to work your way to heaven, your dirty rags of trying to be a good enough person, your man's righteousness is his filthy rags. You take away your dirty rags, and Jesus just forgives you of your sin. You realize you're a sinner, and you say, Lord, please save me. And the Lord saves you. He takes off them filthy rags of sin and works and whatever, and puts on he covers you in his shed blood. And puts on, it says when we return with him at the Battle of Armageddon, we're all going to be wearing robes of white. We've got new clothes. And man, and that's just amazing to me. I'm glad the Bible leaves no doubt about it. Joshua, the high priest, was a saved man. He was a forgiven man. I'm glad we have an advocate. This is one of those wonderful passages where we have Jesus as our defense attorney in heaven. We'd lose. We'd lose. If we went, and this is why I say to people, when you stand before God one day, if you think you're going to argue your way into heaven, if you think you're going to reason, well, my parents didn't treat me just right, I didn't have the right school to go to, whatever reasons you have, I mean, like Adam and Eve in the garden, well, the serpent that you made, God, the serpent beguiled me. Well, the woman that you made me, she led me into sin. None of that held water, if you'll remember correctly. Their argument, there was some truth to it, but if you remember, that didn't cancel it out. And the man and the woman still had to give an account. And I'm glad that God shed blood and killed, I believe, a lamb and covered them with animal skins there. I'm glad He did that. I'm glad they accepted it too. Because they had to realize, you know what, even though I haven't had a perfect life, even though I was tested and tempted and had some temptation, I can't blame God for that. And these people who think they're going to stand before God and shake their finger at Him and blame Him for their life and blame Him for the sins that they've committed and blame Him for their own problems, they are in for a very rude awakening. And I'm so thankful that I have a defense attorney who is Jesus Christ. And He's going to stand up and say, no, I bought this one. This one was bought with a price. I shed my blood for this one. I'm the lamb slain before the foundations of the earth. I'm the one, I died for this one. And that's what will be said for me one day. I hope that's what will be said for each and every person that's listening to this. Listen, this is an amazing path. You can see why I thought about just focusing on this one. Amazing picture here of Jesus as our defense attorney, as our advocate. In Zechariah chapter number 4, in verse number 6, we see here that the Messiah is going to pour out His Spirit here. That's not by physical might. Verse number 6, then He answered and spake unto me, saying, this is the word of the Lord unto Zerubbabel, saying, not by might nor by power, but by my Spirit, saith the Lord of hosts. We tend to think the New Testament's all about the Holy Spirit. No, the Holy Spirit's been working all along. He's got a little different ministry in the New Testament. You find Him entering into people and sealing the believer in the New Testament. But even in the Old Testament, we find the Holy Spirit working. Look at verse number 7. Who art thou, O great mountain? Before Zerubbabel thou shalt become a plain. He shall bring forth the headstone thereof with shoutings, crying, grace, grace unto it. Think about that. Jesus said, if you have the faith as the grain of a mustard seed, you shall move mountains. You shall say to this mountain, move hence. Did He have this passage in mind when He was saying that? And He talks about the grace of God in this passage. It's amazing the focus that Zechariah puts on the Messiah. In chapter number 12, look over there with me really quick. We've got a few more passages really quick. Chapter number 12, verse number 9. And it shall come to pass in that day that I will seek to destroy all the nations that come up against Jerusalem. And I will pour upon the house of David and upon the inhabitants of Jerusalem the spirit of grace and of supplications, and they shall look upon me whom they have pierced, and they shall mourn for him as one mourneth for his only son, and shall be in bitterness for him as one that is in bitterness for his firstborn. In that day shall there be a great mourning in Jerusalem, as the mourning of Hadadrimmon in the valley of Megiddo. That's the battle of Armageddon He's talking about there in the valley of Megiddo. Now I want you to think about this. You remember when we started out looking at the prophets in Obadiah introduced this idea of the day of the Lord. And Joel really took it and ran with it. Isaiah talks about it quite a bit. And the prophets talked about this day of the Lord. And I was telling you, it's got some multiple meanings, but there's one main meaning. It's got multiple applications. The main meaning is Armageddon, the battle of Armageddon. Notice what he said in verse number 9. It shall come to pass in that day. He's still talking about the day of the Lord. Zechariah is taking the same theme and talking about the day of the Lord. In that day shall come to pass that I will seek to destroy all the nations that come against Jerusalem. What do you think that's talking about? That's talking about the battle of Armageddon, when they all come up against Jerusalem in that day. Look at verse number 11. In that day. The day of the Lord. But I also pointed out to you when we were looking at it, it also has another application. 1,000 years is as a day, and a day is as 1,000 years, Peter tells us. The 1,000-year reign of Christ. So that day of the Lord begins a day of the Lord. Think about that. And Zechariah goes on, he starts talking about that in another passage here. Look at Zechariah chapter number 14 and verse number 2. Well, look at verse number 1. Behold, the day of the Lord. Same theme there. Chapter 14, verse 1. Behold, the day of the Lord cometh, and thy spoil shall be divided in the midst of thee. For I will gather all nations against Jerusalem to battle. Still talking about the battle of Armageddon. And the city shall be taken, and the houses rifled, and the women ravished. And half of the city shall go forth into captivity, and the residue of the people shall not be cut off from the city. Then shall the Lord go forth and fight against those nations, as when he fought in the day of battle. And his feet shall stand in that day upon the Mount of Olives. You see why this fits so well with the book of Revelation. Now, he talks about he's going forth. Remember, John talks about this in more detail in Revelation. It says that he comes forth, we come riding with him on horses, and Jesus speaks, and all of those armies die. And it talks about how basically the valley will be filled with blood up to a horse's neck. And how much, and Jesus is just going to speak, and it's just going to happen. It talks about the sword of his mouth is going to go forth, and they're just going to, man, I can't, it's going to be wow. It's a lot of stuff going on here. The tribulation is happening. It's the worst time on planet Earth. I mentioned this before. It's going to make what Hitler did to the Jews look like child's play, what the Antichrist does to them. He described it some right there in verse number 2. It said, and the city shall be taken, the houses rifled, the women ravished. It's not going to be a good time. It's going to be an absolutely awful time at the last possible second. I've heard Bible scholars talk about how the last few vial judgments talked about in the book of Revelation, the earth couldn't survive for more than a few days on those last few. Like those last few have to be bam, 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 because there's no way the earth could survive without the sun, and with all the oceans of the earth turning to blood, and all this stuff happening, and it's going to be, at the last possible second, Jesus shows up. Boom! Saves the day. You can see why every Jew that's still alive gets saved in one day. I mean, it's a cataclysmic event. It's a crescendo, and all of a sudden Jesus comes back and he says, I'm the one you slew. I'm the one you rejected. Wasn't that what he was talking about? In verse number 10 of chapter 12, I will pour upon the house of David and upon the inhabitants of Jerusalem the spirit of grace and of supplications. They shall look upon me whom they have pierced. This is Zechariah saying this. It hasn't even happened yet. Jesus hasn't even come. This is 500 years before he even comes. And Jesus is predicting what's going to happen at the Battle of Armageddon. That hasn't even happened yet. Is that not amazing? At least 2,500 years in the future. Because here we are 2,500 years later. That is, wow, mind-blowing. He's telling them a conversation they're going to have. And all the Jews are going to look at him and he's going to say, I'm the one you pierced. See my hands? See my feet? Remember the side? And I believe the Bible teaches about a third of the Jewish population will be left at that time. It'll be a remnant, and they will get saved. They will go, wow, that is our Messiah. And they'll get saved. See how the focus is on the Messiah here. Go back to chapter number 14 for just a minute. In verse number 3, then shall the Lord go forth and fight against those nations as when he fought in the day of battle. That's the battle of Armageddon. And then verse number 4, and his feet shall stand in that day upon the Mount of Olives. Now this is so amazing how thorough this is. Because at the rapture, before the tribulation, we're told that he never sets foot on the ground. He stays up in the cloud. He says, come up hither. He says, come on up. Church, get out of there. Stuff's about to happen. I'm withdrawing the Holy Spirit of God, and things are about to take place on the earth, and you'll be glad you're not there. So the rapture happens, and while we're having the marriage supper of the Lamb, tribulation is happening down here. While the church is having the marriage supper of the Lamb. Oh, it's amazing the things that are happening simultaneously here. At the end of that, we come back with him, and he sets foot on the Mount of Olives. That's where he left. Zechariah doesn't know that yet. He doesn't know that's where Jesus is going to leave unless God just showed him. I don't know, but that's amazing. Zechariah, 500 years before Jesus even comes, is predicting where he's going to come back. At least. Here we are 2,500 years later. That is amazing, is it not? He's predicting where Jesus is going to come back at the Battle of Armageddon after he slays all of them, and he sets foot on the ground on the Mount of Olives. That's why you can read this and you can think he's talking about when he ascends. No, this is when he descends. This is when he puts his foot back down. Look at what happens to the Mount of Olives, which is before Jerusalem on the east. And the Mount of Olives shall cleave in the midst thereof, toward the east and toward the west, and there shall be a very great valley. This thing's going to split in half when he sets foot on it. It causes an earthquake. You talk about, Hollywood has got nothing on this, okay? We watch Hollywood and Superman does all of his super stuff and Thor comes down, whatever, and all this, and boom, and earth-shattering stuff. Jesus just sets foot. He doesn't even have to show off. After killing all of the armies of the earth, with just speaking, he sets foot and boom. Soak that in a little bit. He's pretty powerful. You talk about coming back. He left like a lamb. He's coming back like a lion. Oh, it's amazing, isn't it? How it all fits together. And it's just perfect. Shall cleave in the midst thereof toward the east and toward the west, and there shall be a very great valley, and half of the mountain shall remove toward the north, and half of it toward the south. And ye shall flee to the valley of the mountains, for the valley of the mountains shall reach unto Azel. Yea, ye shall flee, like as ye fled from before the earthquake in the days of Uzziah, king of Judah. Zechariah, apparently there was a pretty good earthquake during Uzziah's reign 200 years before, and Zechariah is still talking about it. And they're talking about how this is going to be an earthquake that puts that to shame. And the Lord my God shall come, and all the saints with thee. See? All the church, all the people that got saved in the Old Testament, all of that, David and Jonathan, everybody, and all the church, Paul and Peter, and everyone's been saved since that, is coming with him during that 1,000-year reign of Christ. And that's where he starts talking about it. Look at this, a few more verses and a few more passages here. A couple more passages. Look at verse number 6. Now he starts talking about the 1,000-year reign. And it shall come to pass in that day that the light shall not be clear nor dark, but it shall be one day which shall be known to the Lord, not day nor night. But it shall come to pass that at evening time it shall be light. That's amazing, isn't it? It's going to be a different time. It's going to be a different world. I don't even know how to fathom that. I'd really have to look at the prophecies in Revelation where it starts talking about the sun being blotted out. I don't know if he reignites the sun or lets it totally burn out or what, but apparently Jesus is the light of the world. is kind of the theme of this. Verse number 8, and it shall be in that day that living waters shall go out from Jerusalem, half of them toward the former sea, and half of them toward the hinder sea. In summer and in winter shall it be. And the Lord shall be king over all the earth. So if you're still wondering what he's going to do here, in that day, in that day shall there be one Lord, and his name one. All the land shall be turned as a plain from Geba to Rimmon, south of Jerusalem, and it shall be lifted up and inhabited in her place from Benjamin's gate unto the place of the first gate, unto the corner gate, and from the tower of Hananeel unto the king's winepresses. And men shall dwell in it, and there shall be no more utter destruction, but Jerusalem shall be safely inhabited. What a promise of the millennial reign of Christ. One more passage to look at. The Messiah is going to rebuild the final temple. Zechariah chapter number 6, verse number 12. It says, and speak unto him, and that's talking about Joshua the high priest. It names him in verse number 11. And speak unto him, Joshua, saying, thus speaketh the Lord of hosts, saying, behold, the man whose name is the branch. Talking about the Messiah. And he shall grow up out of his place, and he shall build the temple of the Lord. Even he shall build the temple of the Lord, and he shall bear the glory, and he shall sit and rule upon his throne. Again, talking about the millennial reign. And he shall be a priest upon his throne, and the counsel of peace shall be between them both. What an amazing time. See, Zechariah is telling them, hey, get back to work. The Messiah is coming. He's coming. Here's what he looks like. Here's what he's going to do. Here's the things. Here's the things that are going to happen to him. I mean, he covers so much time here. It's like he's seeing it all at once. God gave him a vision, didn't he? He showed him exactly what was going to be happening in the future. I think the admonition for us today is ready or not, here he comes. He could come in 200 years. I don't know. He could come in 100 years. He could come tomorrow. Let's get busy serving him. He's worth it, isn't he? I mean, look at the book of Zechariah. Who else could write that? 500 years before he ever even came. Who could do that? God did that. God was talking about his Messiah. And so he's worthy of our praise. He's worthy of our service. If you're not saved, if you haven't placed your faith and trust in him, I encourage you to do that. Because he's worth it. He's very well worth it. He's the only way to God. Jesus is the only way. He's the Messiah. He's the Son of God. And he is worth it. Let's close in prayer this morning. Heavenly Father, I pray that you'd encourage us and excite us about the Lord, about